Time now for the Sunday Talk. Tonight, the politics of Hillary Clinton. Last week, a crushing loss in the New Hampshire primaries. Last year at this time, she looked like a shoo-in for the Democrats. But is history repeating itself? And why can't she seem to lock in voters?
I suppose I could have stayed home and baked cookies.
Hillary Clinton, of course, has already had 2 terms in the White House.
We often joke that our campaign slogan should be buy one, get one free.
There has never been a first lady like her. She spearheaded substantial policy drives, including controversial health reform. Her years in the Senate burnished her credentials.
I will do everything I can to make this the best place in the world.
And in 2008, when she ran for the nomination, a big part of her appeal was that she could be the first female president. Instead, Democrats settled on another candidate who would make history.
Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it.
Barack Obama made Clinton Secretary of State, where she was a globe-trotting powerhouse.
With smart power, diplomacy will be the vanguard of our foreign policy.
This time, Clinton has made gender a big part of her campaign. Democrat heavyweight Madeleine Albright called on women to flock to the cause.
Just remember, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other.
But for many young women and men, the banner of progress is again in the hands of a man, this time Bernie Sanders.
There's something very politics about the way that she talks, and Bernie has a refreshing way of speaking.
Ultimately, it's not just being the first woman, though we need one. It's being the right president at the right time.
You should follow the politics and vote for who you want based on what you believe in. I believe in Bernie.
I'm joined now by our panelists. Tasha Keratin is a columnist with the National Post and iPolitics. Supriya Dwivedi is a political commentator and consultant at Crestview Strategy. And Ann Kingston is a senior writer at Maclean's Magazine. So she's nuanced it a little bit, Madeleine Albright, since those first comments about women who don't support, well, all women who don't support other women deserve a special place in hell. But what do you think? Is there a point there, Tasha?
Well, hell would be pretty full because the women are not unanimous behind Hillary Clinton. And I think part of the reason is because she is a polarizing figure. And I think women should vote for a candidate that they believe in, both their beliefs, also their personality, but they think would be the right person for the job. And I think the problem with Hillary Clinton is partly is her past, but also I think a lot of young women haven't been through the same struggles she has. They don't necessarily connect. And she suffers also a bit, I think, from what intersectional feminism has said, which is she is a white woman of privilege. She is seen that way. She doesn't represent feminism the way feminism, I think, is increasingly defined. So I think that feminism, in a way, is her undoing when she tries to be its standard bearer. And why aren't more women supporting Hillary Clinton, young women in particular?
Well, I think Tasha hit on an important point, and that is this idea that, that the battles have been won. I'm going back to the Albright quote. I think it's important to contextualize that. And the point is that she originally said that more than 25 years ago. This isn't a fresh comment. She wasn't commenting on the moment at hand. She was talking about a time when, before a lot of women who are voting or not saying they don't support Hillary Clinton, when women were making strides in the 80s and 90s in business and law and so forth. So the idea was you did what men had done for centuries, is pull up and help other women around you. So going to the other point about why young women aren't supporting, I think that there is that sense of not having witnessed firsthand, and there is this sort of phenomenon, the cultural critic Susan Douglas calls it enlightened sexism, and it's the idea that we live in this post-feminist age where everything, what are we even thinking about this for? Let's just sit on the couch and watch Girls Gone Wild. And it paves way for a far more kind of pervasive sexism, insidious sexism that we don't call in the same way we did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
There's so much to get into there, but let's just start with your reactions, Supriya, to the Madeleine Albright comment or the argument that why aren't people supporting women, Democratic women? Why aren't they supporting Hillary Clinton?
Well, I'm going to say something really groundbreaking here, and it's that a group of women aren't monolithic, nor are they homogeneous in their makeup. Any group of women is going to be just as varied and just as diverse as a group of men, and I think you're seeing that increasingly with Hillary Clinton. One thing that I think is important to point out, though, is that her gap with young women or millennial women is, in fact, with with white women. She's doing quite well with women of color and people of color in generally. And we can discuss why that is, but I think an underpinning of that is that millennials are pissed off. We've been told that if you got a college degree and you did well, you'd have a good paying job, you'd be able to afford a house. And I think Bernie Sanders is speaking to that anger, that undercurrent rather of anger to millennials in a better way than Hillary Clinton is. And I think that has more to do with it than the unpacking of, do I want to vote for somebody who has a uterus or not?
I find also Hillary Clinton has made a lot of comments about issues millennials have, such as the Uber economy, the sharing economy. She's come out against these things. She's come out and said this is something that we almost have to fix. And I think there might be a disconnect in terms of how she actually understands those kinds of issues, which are issues for people of a younger generation.
But the other thing that Bernie has really touched on here is the way he packages his message. Hillary's message is often about her and not about the voter itself. And you saw that in Barack Obama's campaign as well. It was yes, we can, not yes, I can, and you're going to elect me and I'm going to fix your problems. And so I think there's a messaging aspect here, politically anyway.
Well, we can talk about style in a sec, but I'm really curious about this idea that like feminism is so much last decade's problem. What do you think about that, Anne?
Well,
I mean, maybe it's a sign of optimism or of hope that women are moving on.
Well, I think there's also the issue that the biggest problems with the women's movement was it was the women's movement. So now we need to have intersectionality. We need to have a connectivity, and Sanders seems to be voicing that more broadly, and his message is resonating.
Even though in his body language he's extremely sexist.
No, totally.
When he's talking to Hillary Clinton, the finger wagging, the face making, it's incredible.
To that point though, I'm sorry to cut you. One of the other reasons is people don't like her, and that's something a lot of people instinctively do not like her as a person, never mind a woman, but a lot of people she rubs the wrong way. I'll let you finish your point because I have a lot to say about why
well,
I
that's
think
one of the big rocks against her, that she's not likable.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the interesting point, and I don't think that she has the same latitude that a Sanders has in terms of the scope of defiance, of anger, of sort of tapping into
disheveledness,
she would be crucified. The word hysteria would come up. I think that there is. I mean, I think that your point about Sanders and what he strikes is a lot more broader and is more hopeful in terms of widespread systemic kind of revolution. And the thing that Hillary is now burdened with is all of this history, and the 2-for-1 kind of the coverture stuff with the White House.
That is very relevant because, and I will go, why I don't like her? I don't like her for that cookies comment. I've not liked her, not about politics or policy, but from that moment when she said that, oh, I didn't bake cookies. And I thought, you know what? My mother baked cookies. She went back to work after about a decade. And that's a really obnoxious thing to say. And I think the fact she's stuck by her man so much also hurts her with feminists because, to me, she is not a role model for women in relationships.
I disagree with that,
I disagree. I'm a feminist. I'd like it to each their own. Like, who am I to tell somebody what their marriage and what their personal business is? Like, if that had happened to me and I was in the public light, if my husband is watching, I wouldn't be as impatient.
In your own life, as a woman, would you say that's an acceptable way to treat a woman? She should just take it because she wants to accede to the White House later? That's what it looks like.
But now you're imposing all these views that you have onto her. Like, to be honest, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Bill is the love of her life, and she actually thought she could work.
Okay, let's not have the Hillary Bill marriage discussion here tonight. But Supriya, I'm wondering, do you think that the battle for equality has been won?
No, absolutely not. Come on. I mean, Planned Parenthood is on the chopping block any chance it gets. Women still don't have dominion over their own bodies in many states, and restrictive abortion measures are constantly being introduced. There's no such thing as pay equity. There's no paid mat leave. Childcare is $1 gajillion.
But why isn't that front and center for so many female Democrats?
I mean, I think it is, but when you have two Democratic candidates that essentially are both pro-choice and support a lot of the same measures, the notion that you need to be voting for somebody simply because she is female falls flat. And I don't think Hillary Clinton should be voted for because she is, the female candidate. She's also the hyper-qualified candidate and is the presidential candidate.
That almost seems to be a sort of pejorative to be hyper-qualified. I think what's interesting is what's emerging now is that we have a situation where it's considered sexist to vote for the woman candidate because she is a woman, and it's a feminist choice to be voting for Bernie Sanders, as opposed to the notion that, going back to this whole idea of choice, we should be trying to get away from this, I think, but it's become a central way of discrediting, and just to make a larger point, structurally, you know, the type of feminism that she embraced, the type of feminism that talks to the issues that still remain to be solved, and they're facing the U.S. Supreme Court.
She makes an issue of it. This is the thing. She makes an issue of vote me and her supporters like Albright because she's a woman, implying that only a woman can bring the kinds of change that you're talking about, which are relevant. But many men, in all fairness, many strides women have made historically have been given by men who were in power at the time.
Because the men have been in power.
Exactly, but men can make change too, is my point.
At the end of the day, there are certain aspects that only a woman is really going to understand. Bernie Sanders also called Planned Parenthood the establishment. I don't know in what universe any woman politician would
Narelle.
Yeah, and Narelle would ever refer to pro-choice groups as being the establishment. There are certain aspects that I think Hillary has an advantage over because she's a woman. She has faced discrimination. I don't think any man can really speak.
I wonder, why was it 4 years ago, why was it so important to have the first black president, and now it's not seen as important to have the first female president?
We didn't have that conversation about Barack Obama, and the idea of the optics that are involved. Everybody's talking about the revolution that Bernie Sanders is promising. Well, what is more radical or revolutionary in the United States than a female, a female president?
But it seems to many it's not seen as that revolutionary.
We did have that conversation. Barack Obama was seen as going to be the first post-racial. That was a big part of his campaign in terms of would America elect a black president? Would that advance the cause of rights? So I think we did have that conversation.
But if that's not important, Tasha, then why isn't
Because I think the U.S. has grappled with the racial issue and going back to the time of the Civil War, going back to slavery in a way that it's a very particular issue for the United States, and I think that he came along at a time when people were ready for that.
I agree the trauma of slavery is still with the United States, but the point is that nobody said about Barack Obama, oh, well, we'll just have somebody who will advance the race, the race issue, a white guy. Why can't you have a white guy who's powerful do that? That's what's being said about Hillary Clinton, as opposed to saying we need a woman to have that role.
There's so much left to talk about here, and we are out of time. Thank you so much. This was our first ever all-female panel. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.